Beginner motorcycles in every category, starting off with one of my favorites, the sport bikes. Arguably my favorite category now is the nakeds, but the nakeds and the sport bikes. Starting off with what I think is like the creme de la creme. Everybody talks about this bike, so let's just get it out of the way. The Yamaha R3. It's agile, it's lightweight, beginner friendly. The seat height is like 30.7 inches. So if you're short too, it's actually perfect. If you're under 5 foot, it may be a little too tall. Stick around, we have motorcycles for short riders on this list as well. I believe the MSRP for this bike is around $5,500. But as always, I do advocate buying used, especially for your first motorcycle, because inevitably at some point you're gonna drop it and learn some lessons. So it's better to buy a used bike and not fully regret that you just dropped your brand new motorcycle right out of the parking lot. I think the R3 is like the perfect pinnacle beginner sport bike because it looks great, it sounds great, it's agile, it's lightweight, everything that a beginner rider wants is in that sport bike. It's not too heavy, it's like 375 pounds, has a 321cc engine. Really, what more could you want? Really, what more could you need? Moving right along to Honda, the CBR 300R is a great beginner sport bike. Weighing in a little bit lighter than the R3, actually about 357 pounds, although I think it depends on the year. It's got a 286cc engine, and the seat height is about 30.7 inches, one of Honda's approachable sport bikes. It's essentially the Rebel 300 engine, but in a sport bike frame. It's not fast, but it is light and efficient. I think it's ideal for someone wanting to learn, make mistakes, and not be super punished for it like you would if you were buying a higher cc sport bike. The people that tell you you'll get bored of a 300cc sport bike are usually not the people you want to be listening to. It's really subjective because it depends on the rider. Anyway, the CBR 300R is perfect for learning. It's lightweight, it's nimble, agile, it's a little bit cheaper than its competitors too, although also a little bit slower. You can buy anyone for about $4,900. Next up on my list is the Kawasaki Ninja 500. It's a 451cc sport bike with a parallel twin engine. Yes, it'll also be pricier, and depending on which version you're going for, it'll be anywhere from like $5,500 to almost $6,000. So a bit pricier than the other two, but again, I'm an advocate for buying a used bike as your first motorcycle. I also want to give an honorable mention to the Ninja 300, which is no longer being made, but you can probably find them on the marketplace used. And also the Ninja 400, which again is not being made anymore, but you could find them used. Fortunately, the 400 has been turned into the ZX4R now, which is a track-ready beast. That's over $9,000, so definitely not a beginner-friendly sport bike unless you're thinking about racing. In that case, honestly, just buy a used R6. Another one on this bike list is the KTM RC 390. This one's a 370cc liquid-cooled single-cylinder 4-stroke engine. It'll run you just under $6,000 if you buy it new. But it does have sharp styling and that classic KTM look that everybody loves. If you're on the shorter side, just be aware that this bike's seat height is 32.4 inches, so it's a little bit taller than the other ones that I've mentioned, so if you're actually short, you might have a bit of trouble with this one. It is always good to learn how to balance a bike on one foot, but as a beginner rider, the confidence you get from being able to put both feet on the ground is unparalleled while you're learning. So I do advocate for trying to get a bike that you can actually flat foot or tippy-toe on both sides at least. Okay, next category, which honestly, it kind of goes along with sport bikes. The naked uprights I feel like are just sport bikes without fairings. So if you like more of that like mechanical look to a bike, then may I humbly suggest the Yamaha MT-03. This is a street-tuned twin-cylinder bike that's super beginner-friendly, slightly cheaper than the R3, coming in at just $5,000. The seat height's pretty comparable to what we've seen so far at 30.7 inches, so it's actually fairly low to the ground. If you're on the shorter side, this is a great bike. If you're gonna jump on an upright naked bike as your beginner bike, definitely know that the engines are tuned differently, and they're tuned to be a little bit more torquey down low, which actually makes them more fun to ride at lower speeds because you don't have to rev so high to get into the power band to actually have fun with them. It's one of the beautiful things I enjoy about my MT-07. Fun fact, if you didn't know, MT in Yamaha's MT line stands for Master of Torque, and they are torquey. The one thing I love about the MT-03 and why I would recommend it is because it looks aggressive, but the seating position is so comfortable. Again, it's an upright naked, and of course you can lower the bars and make it more like track aggressive if you want, but inherently it's designed to be a little bit more comfortable. One thing to note about the naked category though, no windscreen, no wind protection, so if you're going to be riding highway speeds, although I don't know why you would ever want to take a 300cc naked bike for long highway rides, you're going to get a lot of annoying wind buffing that's going to have an effect on you in terms of fatigue long term on longer rides. Coming in at that same category is the Z400, which is basically the Ninja 400 but the naked version of it. It's around the same price as the MT-03, about $5,000 depending on which version you get and which model year. Seat height is fairly similar to the MT-03, a little bit taller at 30.9 inches, but again, really shouldn't be a problem. The one thing about Kawasaki bikes that I've noticed, every one that I've sat on has a very narrow seat, which can be uncomfortable on longer rides, but has the added benefit of putting your feet closer to the motorcycle, which means you'll be standing a little bit taller on it so you can reach more of the bike. So the fact that it's 30.9 inches versus the MT-03, which is 30.7, really wouldn't be a big concern for me because I know that tank is going to be narrow. Styling wise, between the two, I'm actually torn because I think they both look great. If you're a fan of KTM, the KTM 390 Duke is also a good option, although it's a bit pricier than the other two at about $5,900, but I think it looks the best out of the MT-03 and the Z400. But the KTM Duke is a tall boy with a seat height of 32.3 inches. Alright, this next category is pretty fun because it's the mini motorcycles. I don't know if that's really worth me doing a whole lot of differentiation between these bikes, as most of the difference is really just going to be in the price. You really can't go wrong with a Honda Grom. This thing is iconic. It's compact. It's extremely popular. I feel like the Grom just comes with its own personality. This tiny bike is super fun. I feel like there hasn't been a motorcycle meet or ride that I haven't seen one of these. Kawasaki makes their own version of this, the Z125, although that one I feel like hasn't gotten as much popularity as the Honda Grom. It's really essentially the same thing as the Grom. I feel like maybe it's a sportier alternative to the Grom. The Honda Grom is $3,400, the Z125 is $3,700. They're both tiny, they're both fun, they both have the same engine size, and if you're really short, I'm talking like under 5 foot, this may be an option you want to consider at least while you're learning. I feel like you can find these pretty cheap used, but don't expect to be going on the highway with these too often. Maybe if you're just quick hopping on and off. I don't think these bikes really make it over 60 too often. Maybe if you're going downhill on a highway for a really long time, you'll make it past 60. But yeah, these are really like tiny, fun bikes designed to be ridden not on the highway. If you got a city commute, this one's the one for you. Kind of in the same category as the Honda Navi, except it's a little bit different in that you don't really have to shift, so there's no clutch. The fuel efficiency of this thing is like 110 miles per gallon. It's super lightweight. It's the same size as the Grom and the Z125. The top speed is about 60 miles an hour, I think. If you're short, again, it's a great beginner bike, but also the price, it's only like $2,000. So great if you're trying to learn. Not so great if you're trying to learn how to shift, but if you're extremely scared and you want to take it easy and slow, got balance issues and want to like get that ironed out, I think that would be a good way to go. The next category we're covering will be right after a word from our sponsor, Yuasa Battery. A few months ago, I replaced the original Yuasa battery that had been on this bike for 6 years with another Yuasa YTZ10S battery, the same model. After having a lengthy discussion with my dad, he's a battery engineer, he told me that there's really no point in getting a lithium-ion battery as compared to an absorbed glass mat battery, which is what the Yuasa YTZ10S is. Unless you're a professional racer and you need to shave off every ounce of weight that you can, there's really no point in going with a lithium battery. The second thing I like to think about is whether I can get a battery that is easy to maintain. An AGM battery like this one fulfills that criteria because you don't have to fill it. Just make sure that you keep it maintained during the winter, using something like a trickle charger. And my personal favorite on the list, and why we'll probably always buy AGM batteries from now, is that they're fully recyclable. In fact, it's profitable in this industry to recycle AGM batteries. That's why they encourage you to bring in batteries for recycling. 99% of the components in it are recyclable. So if you want a battery that has been time tested by yours truly, is also environmentally friendly and easy to maintain, I trust Yuasa AGM batteries for that purpose. You can check the link in the description to find the one that will fit your specific model. Now, let's get back to the video. Moving on to the next category, cruisers. Cruisers you can buy in higher CCs because it's really not the same at all as a sport bike. For total beginners, and especially if you're short, these are great bikes to start on because seat height's super low. My first pick is the Honda Rebel 300. My next one is the Honda Rebel 500. Both of these bikes are lightweight, low seat height, and have great handling. They're accessible to a lot of people, they're highway friendly, and if you're looking for something more comfortable, it's a cruiser, so it's gonna be comfortable. The Rebel 500 is about $6,300. The Honda Rebel 300 is about $4,800. Both the Honda Rebel 300 and the Rebel 500 have a super low seat height, 27.2 inches, so even if you're under 5 foot, you can definitely touch the ground on both sides. If you're trying to get something a little bit bigger and you have more money to spend, the Harley-Davidson Iron 883 has been one of my favorites. I love the looks and the styling of it. They do vary a lot in price, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 depending on what year you buy. But it is a great looking bike, and if you're into Harley-Davidson, it's a good one to start on. Alright, and we can't forget about the classic category, for which I have two motorcycles that are pretty similar to each other, but I think are great beginner bikes. I'm talking about none other than the Speed 400 and the Scrambler 400X. Every time I've gotten onto Triumph, it's always been like the smoothest, best ride ever, but their bikes are pretty pricey, so it's not generally something that beginner riders would go for. The Speed and the Scrambler are designed to be entry level, so the price is around $5,000. The Speed 400X is about $5,000 and the Scrambler is about $5,600. I think they have a lot of punch down low, but I don't think it's something you would be bored of riding after one season. They were both plenty fun to ride around on. If you're on the shorter side, I would go for the Speed 400, not the Scrambler 400X, because the Scrambler is designed for like light off-road use also, so it's a little bit taller than the Speed. But aside from a few cosmetic things, the difference between them I would say is pretty minimal. Personally, I'm a fan of the Speed 400 more just because of the looks and the colors. If you're a taller rider like 6 foot or above, you would definitely like the Scrambler 400X better. The last time I did one of these videos was so long ago that I felt like it was time for an updated one. Let me know if you guys have any more options down in the comments and we'll share them with new beginner riders. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!